there is so much information when it comes to AI. And I feel like from a company perspective, there's a lot of pressure to adopt it. So we need technology now, the power to digest the data or just more insights.
So Lewis, look, really great to have you. I've known you for many, many years, so I really do appreciate you coming on. Firstly, just tell us a little bit about your role, what you do, and what your day-to-day typically looks like.
For sure, no problem. So at ServiceNow, we're an enterprise software company. So we have, we sell technology, but I work within our workplace and real estate organization. So that's looking after our physical building portfolio. So we manage kind of where we go to, where we grow, how those offices look in terms of design and construction.
Specifically around sort of AI, because it's a huge buzzword at the moment. Everyone's talking about it. Some people are excited about it. Some people are a bit anxious about it. Typically, day to day, how does AI sort of influence or impact what you're doing day to day?
Yeah, so it definitely shows up more in our tools than it does in our physical workspace at the moment. Mm-hmm. So we work very closely with our product team who develop our workplace platform, for example. So, we speak with them really around how we want to optimize our workflows. And really at the moment, the way it's actually showing up day to day is really in just the automation of repetitive tasks. Over the next couple of years, you can kind of see it coming more into the office space physically, whether that be through kind of how the temperature changes automatically, through how people, if we have a lot of people in one part of the building, it could change kind of, the infrastructure around how it supports, for example.
We've known each other a long time, and I know you don't get excited about much generally, but so what's exciting you most around sort of AI and the direction of travel with AI in sort of the workflow sort of space?
Personally, I like to grow and learn things. So I think there is the narrative at the moment, right, where people are a bit worried about job loss, right, as a result of the AI piece. And we might talk about it later, but I also think that there is so much information when it comes to AI. And I feel like from a company perspective, there's a lot of pressure to adopt it, right? So I think when I talk to people, they're like, oh man, there's so much I need to understand and learn about AI. And I think really what I see is you kind of have to take it on and you have to use it.
It's interesting you just said that. A question for you would be, do you feel or do you have any examples of you experience where companies or maybe colleagues or friends of yours have taken on AI or gone, right, I need to use AI, but actually haven't thought it through properly? Do you see that happening at all?
Yeah, I do. And maybe not from a ServiceNow standpoint, but like when I'm talking to peers and things like that, a lot of the times people navigate just to the actual product. So they'll talk about Claude or something like that. They're actually not talking about the root business problem they're trying to resolve, because I think, like I said, AI is everywhere. You need to kind of say something about it, right? And obviously they're hearing these names. So I do think, you need to get down to the root business kind of need, like the operational issue you're trying to resolve, and then look at the technology solution as well. And especially working in a large corporate, you've got each department is trying to build their own IA journey, right? So kind of connecting those dots of where everybody is incredibly difficult at scale.
Where do you think sort of companies, and not necessarily ServiceNow, but companies in general, you've spoken about peers and sort of wider network, where do you think they may be getting stuck at the moment within the sort of AI sort of sphere?
From practical level, I think if your data is not in the right shape, you're not going to get a good output. So that's what we spend a lot of time talking with when I'm kind of doing that customer zero piece with our platform and talking to other real estate people. And we look at their data, if it's in multiple, which it normally is, multiple different areas, multiple different kind of way the data is presented, you're going to struggle. It's going to be a lot slower. And I think the other thing where companies get stuck is, I mentioned earlier about a lot of different departments have a lot of different strategies. If you don't like having AI management structure, then as a company, you're going to be very slow if you're not aligned as to where you want to go. What is your ultimate AI platform that everybody is going to tap into? Because you kind of see it a bit more, but like, especially for us, ServiceNow is the like the front end where employees interface with. Everyone comes to that no matter your problem, right? And then the back end of it starts spraying it out. So I do think from a employee experience journey, employees won't want to go to 5 different places. They'll just want to go to one. So having that unified strategy across a business, I think, is super important. You know,
and you just mentioned your customer zero approach, which is obviously enlightening. What are you learning from that experience, like from that sort of standpoint? You're obviously utilizing these systems internally before clients see them, but what are you then learning off the back of that, do you feel?
I think from a ServiceNow perspective, ultimately, we're learning what works for the client and the end user. I think a lot of the time that the workplace product comes in anyway, it's normally through like the IT department, because our main business unit is ITSM, which is IT ticket management, basically. So, you know, the workplace and real estate people normally haven't heard of ServiceNow. So that's really where I can come in, because I've used it for a couple of years, and say, well, this is how we use this in this type of application. So I think personally what it is for me is I'm in that unique position of where I've got the ServiceNow product, but then I'm also a peer of these you know, workplace and real estate people. So we can just have an honest conversation about what works for me and what they're looking for, because ultimately it just helps ServiceNow build a better product as and when they kind of get around to doing that.
And you're talking very specifically around ServiceNow sort of perspective. What about your personal perspective? Have you sort of seen any sort of, you know, learnings or experiences from a personal perspective?
Yeah, I think for me, I generally, I suppose that's why we're here talking, Chad, right? I like going out and talking to different people to get different perspectives. So I think for me, you know,
the truth's coming out. The truth's coming out.
You know, I just like generally hearing other people's approaches and what they're using and how they're approaching different problems. I think with the AI in workplace and real estate, if we look at like the big level of what we're seeing now, especially in technology, there is a lot of layoffs happening, right? And some of that is being attributed to AI, whether it's the layoffs are funneling AI, or AI is optimizing so much that you don't need the employee base. So why is that impacting us? Well, it either decreases our real estate square footage, right? It means that we have to be more agile in how we build leases, build space, etc. So I think, you know, when I'm talking to those customers, we're talking about the technology, but we're also talking about the bigger impact and the efficiencies that we could have and how that ultimately impacts us in a day-to-day basis.
And what do you think organizations need to be thinking about over the next few years?
For us, and you might hear it all the time, but like agility is like key, isn't it? So I think, you know, we will try and build in as much agility, whether it be into a lease, a physical office space, so that if we go down a certain path, it's not too difficult to course correct because of one thing or another. It might be that we've said we're going to hire a lot of people in a location, but then that strategy changes for some reason. So how do we reduce space or change that location and kind of effort towards it? So I think agility is one. Definitely in the tech sector, it's like, you know, you have to be 2 feet in winning the AI race. And that goes for everyone. So we had a town hall this week, and, you know, the CEO is saying, no matter you're the receptionist or you're the top salesperson, you need to know about how AI works on our platform, but also generally. So if you're talking about it, you know, you can sound proficient in it.
At Rhapsody, we obviously we're a creative agency, but we're an AI-led creative agency, and one of the areas of our expertise are sort of AI agents, and we've adopted that within our workflows internally. And I have my own AI agent that I work with every day that helps me be more efficient. Again, going back to what you were saying earlier about embracing that sort of that technology and making yourself more efficient. Where in ServiceNow, are you adopting agents in ServiceNow, or have you seen any agents in particular businesses that have worked or not worked?
Yeah, obviously ServiceNow, if you look at kind of how what we're communicating about, we have agents too. I think a lot of people have agents now. That is obviously the go-to word, right? But I think for for me personally, like I said, it's more in my personal space. I use it in the work setting, right? Because we have it. But I'm intrigued in terms of, not intrigued. I mean, I can play with it more in a personal setting. For example, how do if I wanted to understand how, utilization data is, and I can use Claude for doing a specific and then use Perplexity for what it's known for, doing that type of thing. But in a work setting, I just have Claude, So
right.
How do I start building that kind of, it's a known term, right? But like AI native, I'm really intrigued to see or start experimenting with how close can I get to like an AI native real estate team. And that's not because I want to get there really quickly in like a ServiceNow setting, but in the future I can see that being very useful for different things. And I think from a workforce, I don't know if you see this at Rhapsody, but like from a workforce perspective, there's a lot of discussion about middle managers basically disappearing because AI agents are there to distribute work and manage the workload. And I think we've started to see it where just generally there's leaner teams. So as opposed to having huge, large team, they're leaner and therefore more agile. So definitely in terms of how we design space and are discussing with teams, kind of that work behavior and how people work is changing a fair bit. As well.
And with regards to sort of mindset and adoption, like what do you think matters most moving forward into like the next year or two?
I think, like I said, I think everyone's not at burnout, but is saturated by the amount of AI and having to adopt it, right? So definitely in terms of how a company adopts it is very important. And, we change things quite quickly. We have a lot of releases, but just the communication strategy of how you talk about it and the value add, I see kind of the biggest changer when it comes to adoption. If I know something and I know how it helps me improve or my team improve, I'm going to go and use it. Whereas, I've talked to peers and things have been deployed in a company, but not communicated. So they'll find out, this is an example of ServiceNow, but, co-pilots deployed and they had no clue that it was coming. So I think it's, even though it's AI, you just come back to the basics of change management, of communicating really clearly, having a good kind of management structure to embed it and make sure it is adopted, and away you go.
And as somebody's like a leader in your sort of space, like if you had a magic wand and you could go, right, I want AI to do this for me and that for me and solve all these problems for me, what would they be and what would that look like?
I think one that is very, very close for some technology companies is the ability to take the analytics, take all the data. So that might be how many people are coming through the door, how they're ordering catering, meeting rooms.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff, right? And then basically analyze that and based off whatever metrics you wish to set, when we hit 60% utilization, we need to, potentially look at more space. That type of thing, I think, is quite close. So in a nutshell, taking the data, what you have, putting it against some set parameters that you need to make decisions against, lease end dates, so on and so forth, and then providing that solution, or saying what you could do. I think that's close. I think the other one as well, because I spend most of my time talking about kind of what I think the value add is of a physical workspace. Like, why should you come in? You're at home today. I'm in an office, right? Why have we chosen that, right? I won't go into that, Chad, but that's genuine, right? Like I see value in it. So, how do I make you want to come to the office as opposed to being at home, right?
Well, if you're not in the office, I'll definitely come to the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate of both, right? As in, there will always be flexibility now. I think the genie's out of the bottle with that, unless a company says so. But my personal take is flexibility is king. But when you come to the office, how do you remove the barriers to entry? So some companies say you've got to reserve a desk, you've got to reserve a car parking space, you've got to do that. What a pain in the bum, to say you've got to come into the office. If that was personalized based off your habits, how you come in, and it's already done for you, then right, it's my environment that I like in the office is already set up. Incredibly difficult to do, but you gave me a one. So I'm saying kind of hyper personalization for you as a person or your team as they come in, I think would be very beneficial.
Okay. Talking to your peers or other leaders within their fields, what advice would you give to them if they're looking at AI right now and they're not sure what to do? What sort of advice would you give them?
Yeah, so and I don't know all the answers either, but some practical stuff that we've done is get educated. Once again, use it personally. I think you do have a bigger reach of what you can leverage from a product perspective. So do that, experiment it, no matter what you want to do. And then from a work perspective, I think we're quite fortunate in terms of, there's a lot of workshops, etc. But there's a lot of external things if you do have kind of like a tuition thing. I've done a thing with Oxford Business School around AI. That was incredibly technical and probably way above what I would need, but it gave me kind of a good basis.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is just talking as an industry, even cross industry, as to what people are using. So I'd say there's some kind of practical things that I've done and want to do. And recent though, like I said, in terms of it feeling very overwhelming, just to give yourself a bit of time as well to say, I can't know everything. I can't be on the top of everything. Like I was on a panel the other day and someone said from the crowd a question around a new AI legislation and said, do you know about this? And my honest answer was no, but thank you.
It changes every day.
Yeah, it changes every day. You can't kind of keep on top of it. So, I just say that, it's quite difficult at the moment to stay on top of everything when it comes to AI.
What have you done with AI that you've gone, wow, that's a mic drop moment. That's been unbelievably brilliant. And where have you got it slightly wrong, maybe?
I'd say, with probably what I did, and I'll give the credit to actually one of my guys in Germany who found a speaker who, I'm happy to share his link if you allow, but he gave us a really good understanding of kind of the AI landscape. And it was just a good understanding at a basic level of what is everybody doing and what are they trying to achieve in layman's terms. And I kind of came out of that AI session with really good clarity as to which ones I wanted to use for what purpose and what they were good at. And I think it would have taken me a lot more time to get to that if I didn't kind of go and use that. So that's kind of talking probably about the education side. I think the failure thing is the point I made earlier, which was leading with the technology solution compared to the actual business problem. So, we obviously look to deploy a lot of AI solutions, and they may have been built for a different department, but are trying to look to embed it for workplace. And, luckily we've caught it early to try and influence the product change. But if so, I'd say that's potentially the pitfall that we've been to.
So talk to me just very briefly about when you was at ISG, because that was pre-AI, right? Or, before all this all this fun stuff was happening. How has it changed from a workplace perspective for you and what you've seen from your ISG days to your ServiceNow days? What's been the main sort of differentiators between those two sort of times in your career?
I'd say the speed of adoption of technology. So workplace and real estate are historically very slow at adopting technology, right? So at the ISG points, it was like, okay, we can deploy X, Y, and Z, but it might not have happened. Whereas kind of the years thereafter, definitely like kind of probably, mid-COVID kind of onwards, it was like, we need more technology in the office space to give us more insights. And the kind of macro level of that would be pre-COVID, we had a monopoly in the office industry. Everybody came to the office. Post-COVID, it's kind of the other way around, maybe starting to drift back to in-office. So we need technology now, whether it be, an AI bolt-on to give you more analytical power to digest the data, or just more insights. So I'd say kind of ISG days pre-COVID compared to post-COVID is just the adoption rate in workplace and real estate has just gone up massively to deploy technology to help inform decisions.
Well, look, we're going to wrap up there, and I think that for me, having known you for many, many years, what's refreshing about you is you definitely do embrace technology and different ways of working. And yeah, I just really want to thank you for your time today, because I found it really insightful, and look forward to what you're up to and what ServiceNow is up to in the coming years. So thank you very much.
No, thanks a lot, Chad. Thanks for having me. Thanks.